GigNet every fourth Monday at 7 p.m. W5FC.
Good evening, everyone. This is Virginia in 5F, and it is almost time for this evening's Skynet. So if you need to use the repeater before we begin in about 5 minutes, please do so now. This is NV5F.
Mr. Chairman, I need to make myself very clear. If we uplink now, Skynet will be in control of your military.
But you'll be in control of Skynet, right?
That is correct, sir.
Skynet.
Good evening, everyone. This is ND5F. My name is Virginia, and I'll be your net control for this session of the BARC Skynet. Skynet is a weekly net called every Saturday night at 9 p.m. concerning the subject of astronomy. Our purpose is to help amateurs become more familiar with the nighttime and daytime sky, astronomy, and space in general. This net is open to all amateurs interested in this topic, and we encourage your participation, comments, and suggestions for this net. Stations with priority or emergency traffic may enter the net at any time by using the pro sign break break and your call sign. Is there any emergency or priority traffic at this time? This is a directed net. Please do not transmit without direction from net control. That would be me. And stations are reminded to ID at the end of your transmissions. This weekly net operates on 146.88 megahertz with a PL tone of 110.9. Check-ins via Echolink are also possible using the W5FC-R station ID or the Echolink node 37247. Tonight's topics, astronomy charts, pictures, and live audio-video links are available online. Go to www.w5fc.org right now for the complete list. Remember to tell your friends and others about this popular net. You can now check into the net electronically by going to the club website, w5fc.org. Look for tonight's announcement and click on the hot link to check in. We will acknowledge you on the air, and don't worry, if you want to check in via voice, we will continue to do that too, over the air and on Echolink. All amateur operators are welcome. You need not be a member of any amateur radio club to participate. This net is 90 minutes long and is structured in several parts. First, we'll have general announcements. Next, we'll have announcements from Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas. Then National Space Society events. Then recent astronomical discoveries. Discussion topic of the evening, what's up, space exploration and space history, constellation of the week, space launches of the week, visible satellite passages of the week for the next couple days. And if there's any time at the end, we'll have astronomical Q&A and a 73 round. All amateurs licensed to transmit on this frequency are invited to check in. We currently have the following people checked in via the w5fc.org website. That would be K5ICX Tom in Corpus Christi, K5NCD Cody in Dallas, NV5F, that's me. I'm on Jupiter's moon Europa this evening. N5LIG Dale in Little Elm, KF5JJ Chaz and Bob the Cat. They're in Milky Way, solar system, planet Earth, somewhere in our galaxy. We have Brenda, WB5OZL in Dallas, N5BB Bill in Irving, W5BLT Bill in Garland. Now let's start with voice check-ins, starting with short time check-ins. Short time check-ins only. Please come now with your call sign, name, and where you're transmitting from this evening.
Kilo 5, Golf Tango Charlie, Todd in East Dallas.
Okay, for short time I've got Kilo 5 Golf Tango Charlie, Todd in East Dallas. Thank you for checking in this evening. Next we will do general check-ins. So anyone who wants to just check in general from regular RF check-ins, please come now with your name, call sign, and location.
This is
Kilo, Golf 5, Uniform, Foxtrot, Romeo, Jacob in Farmers Branch.
This is Kilo India 5 Zulu Oscar Echo Tommy in Balch Springs.
Okay, so far we've added KG5UFR, Jacob in Farmers Branch, and KI5ZOE, Tommy in Balch Springs, and it sounded like up there at the top we had a double, so if you doubled and you didn't hear your call sign, please come now.
Mike Foxtrot India WB4MFI Ted Dallas Low Power.
Alrighty, we've added Ted, WB4MFI in Dallas. I thought that might have been who was the double, so thanks for your patience. Next, we need some Echolink check-ins. So if you're on Echolink and you'd like to check in, please come now. Okay, nothing heard there. So anybody, anywhere, on any mode, open for all check-ins for Skynet. This is your net control Virginia NV5F. If you're on any mode at all and you want to get on the list, please come now with your call, your name, and your location.
Alpha India 5 Sierra Radio, Suvan from Paris.
Okay, I believe I heard Alpha India 5 Sierra Radio. I'm not sure if I've got your call right. Your audio is very low. If you could speak more loudly or turn up your gain, and please repeat your call for me in case I got it wrong, and please come again with your name and your location.
Yeah, that's Roger. Alpha India 5 Sierra Radio, and name is Suvan, Sierra Uniform Whiskey Alpha November, and location is Paris.
Okay, AI5SR, Suvan. Okay, thank you so much for coming back to me on that so I can make sure I got it right. Appreciate it. Okay, well, let's get started. First, we have general announcements. Do we have any general announcements for this evening's net? These can be ham, astronomical, space, or of general interest to licensed hams. Please come now with your announcements.
November Tango 5, Tango Mike.
Kilo Echo 5, Lima Zulu Echo.
Okay, I've got Tony, Indy 5TM, and I also see that you're checked in online. And the second person I got was KE5LZE, which I don't have your check-in anywhere else. So after Tony, we'll go to you and I'll get your other information. So Tony, please come now with your usual wonderful announcement.
Well, I'll try to live up to your wonderful net with some aspiring announcements. Our Afterglow Movie Net discussion tonight will be about The Terminal Man from 1974. Some very noted directors loved this movie. Critics often didn't. I've watched about a third of it, and I'm still on the fence. It's very atmospheric and dark and intriguing. What do you think? We're going to discuss it tonight after this net at 10:30, 10:35-ish, somewhere in there tonight. Please join us. On a less dark and disturbing note, we have a great lecture and lab this month. It's particularly attuned to beginning soldering practice. Many people worry they can't build a kit because they can't solder well. Well, this is building a low-powered dummy load, so you're just going to solder resistor after resistor after resistor. I believe the kit cost is $25. The kit build is Saturday, March 22nd, 2025 at 10 a.m. in our club meeting location, the third floor community room of the Dallas Medical Center. This is one of those kits that's just designed to give you practice, and it will work even if you screw up some of the time, because if you solder 50 resistors and get a couple of them wrong, you're only off by a few percent. So particularly to some of my White Rock neighbors who have said, I don't know how to solder, this is the lecture and lab to go to. But let's say you just want to stay home. Well, this Monday we've got you covered. The MCOM 101 net will take place this Monday at 7 p.m. local time. This net is open to all hams with an interest in public service communication. No races, Aries, or other club membership is required. But what if you do want to get out there and do something in person and you don't want to solder anyway? We've got you covered with that too. The White Rock Lake Amateur Radio Club will be joining with other local amateurs for a Wires in the Park radio play day. The week after lecture and lab, Saturday, March 29th, will be at Dreyfus Point on the east side of White Rock Lake. This event runs from roughly 10 a.m. to roughly 5 p.m. It's not at all formal. We kind of just get there when we get there and leave when we leave and eat when we eat. And in between times, we make contacts on the air and build antennas. Just come out and join us. If you are perhaps a new ham and you don't have a ham antenna, an HF antenna for your station, we'll make sure you leave with one. I mean, all it takes is the wire, and I know we've got coils of wire here. We have our own website for Wires in the Park. It's WITP. Yes, it's an acronym, WITP. Wiresinthepark.info, WITP.info. And you click on the events link on the top right, and you'll find out more about our event on Saturday, March 29th. So you can build an antenna and play on a beautiful day in the park. You can check into a net for MCOM 101. You can learn to solder at the lecture and lab on March 22nd, or you can just talk about a really creepy movie tonight at 10:30. I hope you have a great time. It's a great club, and I'm proud to be part of it. NT5TM.
Okay, thank you, Tony. Appreciate those announcements, and that reminded me of one that I brought to the TechNet, and I will bring it to this net as well. If you just can't wait till March 22nd and March 29th, you can go next Saturday, March 15th, to 310 Highland Village Road in Highland Village, Texas, 75077. I believe that's in Louisville area, and this is Go Kit Challenge is the name of this, and it's a get-together for people who have built really neat Go kits, and they have a contest. If you have a really great Go box or Go kit or mobile setup, this is the place for you. Even if you just want to see these kind of things and be inspired by them, it will be next Saturday, March 15th from 8 a.m. till 12 noon. If you want to get there early to be part of the setup and competition, they set up at 7:30 in the morning, and for the full details of all the prizes and categories, you can go to gokitchallenge.org. So you can be full up with ham radio excitement for the next 3 weekends if you want to. And, of course, every Monday night, in addition to MCOM 101, we've got some kind of nifty net here on Dallas ARC repeater. Okay, thank you, Tony, and thank you for reminding me to announce that one. And next we have KE5LZE. So just remind me your name and your location, and then just go ahead with any announcements that you have.
Kilo Echo Bar, Lima Zulu Echo. I'm having a hard time. I'm definitely listening in. I don't know what's going on. I'm getting a skippy noise going skip, 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 skip. I don't know what's going on there. QSL?
I'm not sure what's going on. I'm hearing the repeater fine where I am, and I'm also hearing, I think everything is okay with the machine. You might have some kind of local disturbance that is causing a skip in the signal. I really couldn't tell you. Is there anyone else who is hearing that and could maybe report back and maybe help us out with this in D5S?
Inside BB question, where's the station located?
KE5LZE, where are you located? KE5LZE, do you copy? We're wondering where you're located concerning your noise you're hearing. Okay, nothing heard. Thank you, Bill, for chiming in on that. Maybe he'll get it sorted out and be back. Okay, let's see, where was I? I'm kind of getting down a rabbit hole here. All right, so let's see. Other announcements. Tony brought us the announcement about the Terminal Man from 1974. Let's see, lecture and lab, MCOM 101. And let's see, the AMSAT, Radio Amateur Satellite Group, has 3 nets available to Dallas residents. On Tuesday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Time, you can check into the National AMSAT net, learn all about amateur satellites, and how you can use them in amateur radio. The National AMSAT net will bring the most up-to-date information on amateur satellites currently in use or new ones coming online. You will need Echolink installed and registered to find the net under Groups and go look up AMSAT. Also, there's a live audio link available on their webpage, www.amsatnet.com. This net originates in Houston. There are also 2 local nets available in the Dallas area. Both of these nets encourage active check-ins. You can ask questions of the net control as well as others who are checked in. AMSAT Net East, Dallas, Fort Worth is every Tuesday at 8 p.m. on this repeater, 146.88 megahertz, PL 110.9, Tuesdays. And Tom in 5HYP is the usual net control. All are welcome to check in. First Tuesdays of the month, there is no AMSAT net because it's DARC Club night. Then the AMSAT Net West is every Wednesday at 9 p.m. on the Arlington Club repeater, 147.140 megahertz, PL 110.9 as well, positive offset. The DARC also has a host of other nets. Monday evenings at 7 p.m. there's always some kind of a net. We've got the AMSAT net, of course, on Tuesday evenings, and we've got the wonderful Night of Nets here every Saturday night. Every weekday evening, we have the ARRL traffic net on this repeater at 6:30, and then we have another traffic net at 9, I believe it's 9:30 on the Irving repeater. Okay, well, we had Tony tell us about Afterglow that is going to come up tonight at 10:30 after this net. Tom, KE5ICX, is our usual fearless leader in the Afterglow world. Tom, would you like to give us your very accurate synopsis of tonight's movie? This is ND5F.
Well, thank you for Virginia, and this is Tom, KE5ICX, down in Corpus Christi. Tonight's Afterglow movie, highly accurate information, is as follows. Harry Benson was brilliant, with an IQ of 144. However, after years of watching terrible science fiction movies, it was apparent his mental health was suffering. One of his recurring dreams was computers rising up against humans and taking over the world. Of course, when that actually became a reality, it was also obvious the medical world would have to find some other malady to pay for all the medical treatment he received. Benson was then subjected to repeat viewings of Mission Backup Earth, Primer, Plan 9 from Outer Space, Benson had enough. While draining his brain of all rational thought could then be the basis of rebuilding him as a better person, it was also obvious this plan of attack wouldn't see the rebuild process. Benson escaped the hospital and decided to run for public office. Join us for the Michael Crichton bestseller turned movie, The Terminal Man, in 1974 tonight at 10:30 p.m. Also, I've added a hot link to this free movie. It's on the website, w5fc.org, under the Skynet information. Just look for the hot link. Back to you, Virginia, KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Appreciate that. Sounds like an interesting movie. Okay, we currently have a couple more people, I think, checked in via w5fc.org. So let me check there really quickly. And we have added, of course, we had added Tony, NT5TM. We've also added Antonio, AG9SG. And we've added N5OF Clay in Mesquite. Oh, and Tony's in Bird City, as usual. So, alrighty. That's the new people we've added on the spreadsheet. I will now take any additional check-ins from any other mode. Please come now with your call sign, your name, and your location, please.
This is Kilo Golf 5 Whiskey Victor Lima, James and Carrollton.
Okay, I've got KG5WBL, James and Carrollton, and then I heard one other transmission. It was full quieting, but there was no modulation of any kind. If you were trying to check in, maybe give it another try. Make sure your microphone is plugged in well, and one more time. Anybody else for check-ins? ND5F.
This is KJ5KLD, Sai from Uptown Dallas.
Okay, I heard Kilo 5 Kilo Alpha. I couldn't tell what the last character was. Please come now again with your call sign phonetically. And I heard you were in Dallas, and come again with your name, please.
Kilo Lima Delta, Sai from Uptown Dallas.
Was that Kilo Lima Delta?
That is correct. Kilo Juliet 5, Kilo Lima Delta.
Okay, I got it now. Kilo Juliet 5, Kilo Lima Delta. Thank you so much for your patience. I appreciate it. All right. Now it's time for Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas, where and when you can look through a telescope. Let's see, I believe that's our friend Chaz, who lives in the Milky Way galaxy. Take it away, Chaz.
Thank you, Virginia. Good evening, everyone. This is Chaz and Bob the Cat. On March the 28th, 2025, is the next Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas Club meeting. The meeting will be held at 7:30 p.m. in person at the University of Texas at Dallas, and there's also a Zoom component, too. The featured speaker, well, has not been identified yet, so we don't have the topic yet either. Now, Saturday night public observing sessions continue. Skynet was picked to be on Saturday night, so there could be an opportunity for live reports from the Texas Astronomical Society of Dallas public observing sessions. On the second Saturday of the month, that would be tonight, the stargazing is held at Frisco, but because of the weather, that had been canceled. You can check the TASS website at texasastro.org for up-to-date information and details about meetings and public observing sessions. This is KF5JHA back to Net Control.
Okay, thank you, Chaz. Appreciate it. And now it's time for National Space Society events with Bill N5BD. What's going up with NSF?
Well, thank you, Virginia. This is N5BD, November 5, Bravo, Bravo. I am the Vice President and Membership Director of the North Texas chapter of the National Space Society. The National Space Society is a nonprofit group based in the U.S. which is interested in the exploration and development of space and the creation of a spacefaring civilization. The big event each year for the National Space Society is the International Space Development Conference, ISDC. The next ISDC will be held in Orlando, Florida, June the 19th through 22nd of 2025, so just a few months away. And you get a discount if you are a member of the National Space Society, and you also get a discount by registering early. The North Texas chapter of the National Space Society meets at 3:30 p.m. on the second Sunday afternoon of each month. The meeting location is Spring Creek Barbecue, which is on the southwest corner of Highway 183 and Beltline Road in Irving. The next meeting will be held tomorrow, Sunday afternoon, March the 9th. A presentation topic tomorrow is Space-Based Solar Power by Ken Ruffin. Our meetings are also available virtually using WebEx. Contact N5BB if you'd like to attend online. And don't wait until the last minute. You need to send me an email or contact me tonight or early tomorrow morning, or I won't be able to assist you. On the last Friday evening of each month, from 6 to 8 p.m., the National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsors a social event called Space Rendezvous. Location is Cheddar's Restaurant, 700 West Highway 635 in Irving. Anyone is welcome to attend and discuss human activities in space with us. No membership in any group is required. The next Space Rendezvous will be held on Friday, March the 28th. The National Space Society North Texas chapter sponsored special award scholarships at the Dallas Regional Science and Engineering Fair in Fair Park in Dallas on Saturday, February 15th. I was one of the judges at this event for space-related student projects. There were some good projects this year. Our local NSS chapter website is ntx.nss.org. Our group also has an active Facebook page. Just search for National Space Society of North Texas. If you have any questions about the National Space Society, please contact Bill, November 5 Bravo Bravo, at my QRZ listed email address or at space@byrom.net. That's SPACE at BYROM.net. That's all. Thank you, Virginia. This is N5BB.
Okay, thank you so much, Bill. We appreciate the announcements every week. And next, we have recent astronomical discoveries with Brenda, WB5OZL. And so it looks like she's got a good topic this evening. So come on with your topic, Brenda.
Thanks, Virginia. This is WB5OZL. The article this week is entitled, Small and Large Planets Have Significantly Different Upbringings. The shape of a planet's orbit is one of its fundamental properties, along with its size and distance from its host star. Earth has a nearly circular orbit, but some planets outside our solar system, called exoplanets, have very elliptical orbits. UCLA astrophysicists have now measured the shape of the orbits of exoplanets from the size of Jupiter down to the size of Mars, and shown that small planets have nearly circular orbits, while giant planets have orbits about 4 times more elliptical than smaller planets. The finding points toward 2 different pathways by which large and small planets form. What we found is that right around the size of Neptune, planets go from being almost always on circular orbits to very often having elliptical orbits, said UCLA postdoctoral researcher Gregory Gilbert, the lead author of a paper describing the findings published in Proceedings of the National Academy of Sciences. The researchers used data collected by NASA's Kepler telescope, which monitored 150,000 stars and measured dips in their brightness caused by transiting planets to discover thousands of exoplanets. The measurements of stellar brightness over time are called light curves. The researchers performed a detailed analysis of the light curve dips to extract information about the shape of the planet's orbits. One of the most challenging aspects of this project was ensuring every single one of the 1,600 light curves was modeled with care. If stars behaved like boring light bulbs, the project would have been 10 times easier, said co-author Eric Pettigura, a UCLA physics and astronomy professor. But the fact is that each star and its collection of planets has its own individual quirks, and it was only after we got eyes on each one of these light curves that we trusted our results. This is where UCLA graduate Paige Entrican came in. Entrican built a custom visualization toolkit and manually inspected each light curve. Reviewing the data was a meticulous process that required careful inspection of all data products to ensure the validity of our results. Several times during this project, I identified failure modes that only affected 1% of our stars, but we needed to update our analysis to be robust to these issues and go back and reprocess the entire data set, Entrican said. The eccentricity split coincides with several other iconic features in the exoplanet population, such as the high abundance of small planets over large planets, and a tendency for giant planets to form only around stars enriched in heavy elements such as oxygen, carbon, and iron. Astronomers call these heavy elements metals. Small planets are common, large planets are rare. Large planets need metal-rich stars in order to form. Small planets do not. Small planets have low eccentricities, and large planets have large eccentricities, Gilbert explained. The coincidence of trends in abundance, metallicity, and eccentricity points to two distinct pathways for forming small and large planets. To see a transition in the eccentricities of the orbits at this same point tells us there really is something very different about how these giant planets form versus how small planets like Earth form. That's really the major discovery to come out of this paper, Gilbert said. Scientists think that planets form when small space rocks fuse to form bigger rocks until eventually they form a planet that can be about the size of Earth, or if the planetary core is very large, up to 10 times bigger than Earth. At this point, the planet is large enough to hold on to large amounts of hydrogen and helium and becomes a gas giant like Jupiter and Saturn in our solar system. Planets larger than Neptune are somewhat rare because they must undergo runaway accretion, a feedback loop of accumulating hydrogen and helium gas, but this can usually only happen if they are orbiting a star that contains large quantities of elements heavier than helium. Larger planets with eccentric orbits also point to a more chaotic period of formation during which planets interact via gravitational forces to produce non-circular orbits. For example, eccentric giant planets probably stir up their neighbors more frequently, causing giant impacts such as the one that produced the Earth's moon. In exoplanetary systems, these collisions can be much more violent, involving the mergers of two planets much larger than Earth. It's remarkable that we've been able to learn about the orbits of planets around other stars using the Kepler Space Telescope, Pettigura said. The telescope was named after Johann Kepler, who 4 centuries ago was the first scientist to appreciate that the planets in our solar system move on slightly elliptical rather than circular orbits. His discovery was an important moment in human history because it showed that the Sun, rather than the Earth, was the center of the solar system. I'm sure Kepler the man would be delighted to learn that a telescope named in his honor measured the subtle shapes of orbits of Earth-sized planets around other stars. All right, back to net. WB5OZL.
Okay, thank you, Brenda. And it sounds by that article that we have some pretty rare planets in our solar system. That's cool. Next is discussion topic of the evening, and that's me, Virginia NV5F. I'm net control, so I had to come up with a really nice topic, and in the spirit of things I'm interested in, I picked one about the current mission to survey Jupiter by the Europa Clipper. This article is entitled End Run Around Radiation, the Saga and Surprise Vulnerabilities of Europa Clipper. This is by Leonard David, and it's from spacenews.com from March 3rd, 2025. Dateline, Golden, Colorado. NASA's Europa Clipper, now en route to Jupiter, departed with less than satisfactory and vulnerable devices that are susceptible to Jupiter's intense radiation. The spacecraft's liftoff on October 14th, 2024, in many ways was arguably a fingers-crossed undertaking. But the coincidental way that the Europa Clipper team learned about the spacecraft's vulnerabilities and devised solutions about problems has resulted in new lessons learned for future civilian missions bound for harsh, high-radiation space destinations. Those lessons learned include the degree of testing necessary beyond simply counting on military specification standards to assure hardware is radiation resilient enough for flight. MIL-SPEC is a set of criteria and standards promulgated by the U.S. Department of Defense and established to assure quality, reliability, and compatibility of parts used in aerospace. Europa Clipper is to reach Jupiter in April 2030 and then perform repeated close flybys of one of Jupiter's enigmatic moons, Europa, which appears to harbor an internal ocean that may have conditions suitable for life. From the beginning of the project in 2015 through the prime mission ending in June 2034, the lifetime investment made into Europa Clipper is a cool $5.2 billion. Managed by Caltech in Pasadena, California, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, JPL, led the development of the Europa Clipper mission in partnership with the Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, APL, in Laurel, Maryland. But getting Europa Clipper off Earth and en route to its destination is a tale of last-minute hand-wringing by a quickly assembled Tiger team of experts to ensure the spacecraft could carry out its mission. Europa Clipper is hauling flawed metal oxide semiconductor field effect transistors. In space-shortened electronic lingo, they are called MOSFETs. They play an essential role in electronic circuits to enable applications like amplification, switching, and signal processing. Roughly 1,500 N-channel MOSFETs are embedded within Europa Clipper. JPL never would have known the MOSFETs were faulty if it wasn't for hallway chatter at an early May 2024 gathering of specialists when an individual from a company that does testing on behalf of the Department of Defense queried a JPL attendee as to how JPL was handling a problem. The issue, MOSFETs were found to fail at a considerably lower radiation total dose than originally claimed by their producer. So probably the person who hinted it to us assumed that we knew already. Recall Soren Madsen, a JPL veteran and chief engineer in the organization's Planetary Science Directorate. We just hadn't heard about it, he told Space News, so it was a little bit by coincidence. But the revelation led to a big question, Madsen said. I wonder whether we have a problem. Finding the answer spurred a rapid-fire creation of a large Tiger Team leadership group led by Madsen that included JPL, NASA, and APL experts. In short order, they pulled together a full list of Europa Clipper's parts. We knew all of the MOSFETs that we had on the spacecraft and in instruments. We then replicated the test results that showed, yes, we had a problem, said Jordan Evans, project manager of the Europa Clipper mission. Curtis Chen, a Tiger Team member, said, it was definitely different from my day job as a JPL engineer that has worked on radars for Mars landers and is engaged in Earth science instruments. It was definitely an interesting challenge to try and figure out what was going on, he told Space News, and solving what was clearly a giant problem. Chen became immersed in data analysis and modeling, radiation testing transistors available at JPL, as well as looking at data from the MOSFET vendor, a supplier that JPL declined to identify, but which also worked with Tiger Team members to dive into the problem. There was not a simple, clean solution that we originally were hoping for. That didn't turn out to be the case, said Chen. We had an army of people looking at circuit diagrams and running simulations just to figure out what would happen if the transistor performance wasn't quite what we wanted it to be. Would that be okay or no? Tiger Team leader Madsen said within a few days in early May, we suddenly realized that we got results that we didn't expect. In some cases, it wasn't quite as bad as we thought, but there were also a couple of cases where it was worse than we thought, he said. The unidentified subcontractor of the problematic MOSFETs, while not part of the Tiger Team, was very open and constructive, said Madsen. Obviously, we wished never had the problem in the first place. Making the Tiger Team task more daunting was the realization early on that the team only had about 1/3 of the parts in stock at JPL for testing purposes, raising questions about whether components installed on Europa Clipper would perform the same as those in storage. Sometimes we had the same part number, but different lot codes would perform differently, Madsen said. That is, some faring better with doses of radiation, others doing worse. In the meantime, as the Tiger Team continued their testing, troubleshooting, and deliberations, Europa Clipper was flown to Kennedy Space Center on May 23rd to undergo final preparations for its October send-off to Jupiter atop a SpaceX Falcon Heavy Block 5. It was a race to the finish line, said Madsen. Nearly all of Europa Clipper's flight system and instrument system electronics and other key items are enclosed in a vault with walls made of 1/3 inch thick sheets of aluminum zinc alloy. That vault protects vulnerable circuits and other crucial components from Jupiter's intense radiation. If we had to open that main vault, it would have been a huge deal, said Madsen, explaining that they may have had to haul the spacecraft back to JPL, replace questionable MOSFETs with better ones, and redo flight qualification testing. Whether that means a 2-year launch window slip, I'm not the right person to ask, but in any scenario, it would be a big deal, Madsen observed. In the end, the Europa Clipper Tiger Team found a way to greenlight the interplanetary probe's departure by mitigating the problem without opening the protective vault. The solution involved annealing the components or using the spacecraft's circuitry to heat them up during periods of low radiation exposure in order to harden them for bouts of higher radiation conditions. The harsh radiation level is a very strong function of how close you are to Jupiter. The further the spacecraft is from Jupiter, the radiation dosage drops dramatically. So the team developed a solution of turning on parts and circuits to warm them up when they are not being irradiated, said Madsen. By heating them up, it accelerates the annealing process. That turn it off strategy was evaluated on Europa Clipper circuitry replicated for ground tests under irradiated conditions. About 200 unique circuits were analyzed, but a handful of those concluded mitigation team members would not make it without help, Madsen advised. It was determined that Europa Clipper could deliver the extra power, he said, to selectively heat circuitry when required and with ample margin to aid the annealing process. We ended up with really good decision criteria that everybody respected. We didn't have any dissent, said Madsen, who on March 21st will be awarded the National Space Club and Foundation's Norman L. Baker Astronautics Engineer Award for his technical leadership of the Europa Clipper MOSFET Tiger team. The appraisal of the MOSFET radiation hardness risk and associated nail biting was wrapped up toward the end of August. JPL Europa Clipper mission and Tiger team leadership reviewed their work with NASA officials on August 27th. There was unanimous agreement that the risk to the planned science to be performed by the spacecraft was acceptably low. The green light to proceed with launch preparation was given. As for lessons learned, Madsen rolls out his soapbox. We have found out that mil-spec standard testing is not well suited for civilian satellites, he said. Similar in view is Evans, JPL project manager of the Europa Clipper mission. In order to meet mil-spec requirements, MOSFET wafers are manufactured cut in pieces to produce MOSFET packages, says Evans. They are given a high dose rate of radiation and sit for 100 hours at room temperature and then are okayed for use. That is the mil-spec, said Evans. In our case, we ordered them out of the catalog based on qualified wafers, Evans added. Now that we understand that there are ways the wafers can degrade over time, doing missions like ours, going to Jupiter with an intense radiation environment, we have to rethink whether we should buy those parts that are mil standard. They don't meet the team's needs after being packaged and sitting on a shelf for a while, Evans explained. Evans said that Europa Clipper circuits can tolerate more than mil-spec. We went through circuit by circuit. That's how we found our way through this. The takeaway message from Evans, if you feel you have a vulnerability to the mil-spec method of qualification, look at doing additional testing of those parts to see if they meet your environmental requirements and the circuits that you'll be using them in. And when Europa Clipper is on duty at Jupiter, I have every reason to believe that we will have a healthy spacecraft at the end of the prime mission, Evans said. Meanwhile, Europa Clipper is on track for a March 1 flyby above the surface of Mars for a gravity assist toward Jupiter, during which the team will get to test several of its instruments. Then the long haul to Jupiter is ahead. Okay, does anybody have any questions or comments for tonight's presentation? Please come with your call sign now. Okay, nothing heard. Thank you for listening. This, again, is Virginia in B5F, your net control for this evening's Skynet. And next we have What's Up with Chaz, KF5JHA. Chaz, KF5JHA, it's time for What's Up. Are you there?
Sorry, here I am. This is Chaz, KF5JHA. We call this segment of Skynet What's Up because it's all about what's going on what has gone on astronomically over the last couple of weeks and what will take place over the next couple of weeks and beyond. That was slide number 2. Slide number 3, when I'm talking about slides on YouTube, we have a channel called Skynet, and you can watch the video version of Skynet. So those are slides that are changing on that. And our slide changer is Tom. Thank you very much. This is slide 3. We've talked about the predicted nova of the star T Corona Borealis, which may erupt at any time. It is currently at a brightness of around 10th magnitude, which is much too faint to see with just your two eyes. But when the nova, when it goes nova, T Corona Borealis could become as bright as the North Star. Now, I can see the North Star from my very light polluted location here in Mesquite with just my two eyes. So that should be a phenomena. It'll only be bright for just a day or two. So, wow. And I just checked it. It's not gone nova yet. Slide Master, slide number 4. This image was taken on Tuesday, March the 4th from spaceweather.com of the sun. The large sunspot complexes on the sun are so large at times that you can use your solar eclipse glasses to see them, and that's all you need. The sun is near its 11 years solar maximum. Now, when is that going to take place? We're not quite sure. We won't know until after it passes. In fact, the north and the south hemisphere of the sun are acting differently. So one will peak at a different time than the other one, so it could be a double peak. Now, I talked about the solar eclipse cycle, the solar cycle, a couple of months ago during Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 5, please. The first quarter moon was on March the 6th, just a couple days ago, so the current phase of the moon is a waxing gibbous. On March the 13th, 14th is a full moon and a total lunar eclipse, which is visible in North Texas. I'll give you details about the total lunar eclipse in just a few moments. On March the 17th, the moon will be at apogee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is furthest from the Earth at a distance of 5,754 kilometers. On March the 22nd, there will be the third quarter phase of the moon. On March the 29th, the moon will be new. On March the 30th, the moon is at perigee, which is the point in the moon's orbit that is closest to the Earth at a distance of 358,128 kilometers. Slide Master, slide number 6, please. On March the 8th, you can observe the conjunction of the moon and Mars in the evening sky. Wait, that's tonight. Well, if it were clear, we could go out and see it, but right now we can't. Oh, well. Slide Master, slide number 7. On March the 11th, there's going to be a conjunction of Venus and Mercury in the western evening sky. You'll probably need a pair of binoculars to see Mercury, and maybe even, Venus is going to be bright enough, but Mercury. Saturn is kind of low in the west as well, and you might need to use binoculars to find Saturn and Mercury. Have you seen them? You can see all 7 planets in the evening sky, and an 8th planet called the Earth below your feet in the evening sky over the last week or so. Slide Master, slide number 8, please. On March the 12th, you can observe the conjunction of the moon and a bright star called Regulus in the western morning sky. Slide Master, slide number 9. Okay, in less than a week, on March the 13th and 14th, there's going to be a total eclipse of the moon. The lunar eclipse occurs when the moon moves into the shadow of the Earth. Most of the time, the moon moves just above or below the Earth's shadow as it orbits. But a couple times a year, the moon travels into the Earth's shadow. There's a lighter part of the Earth's shadow called the penumbra and a darker part of the shadow called the umbra. When the moon moves completely into the umbra shadow of the Earth, we have what's called a total lunar eclipse. The eclipse on March the 13th, 14th is a total lunar eclipse. The last total lunar eclipse visible in Dallas was on November the 8th, 2022. The next total lunar eclipse will be visible from Dallas in about a year on March the 3rd, 2026. Now, the details, here we go. On March the 13th, the moon enters the penumbra at 10:57 p.m. Central Daylight Time. Yep, we switched to daylight time this evening, don't we? And that's difficult to see. The moon enters the umbra at 12:09 a.m. That would be on March the 14th, and the eclipse becomes visible. Totality, that's when the moon is completely into the Earth's shadow, the umbra of the Earth's shadow. That happens at 1:26 a.m. The middle of the eclipse is at 2 a.m., and again, that's on March the 14th. Totality ends when the moon starts leaving the umbra at 2:31 a.m. The moon leaves the umbra at 3:48 a.m., and the moon leaves the penumbra at 5 o'clock a.m. North Texas will see the entire eclipse if the weather's clear. I hope it is clear. I hope. So far, the early weather predictions are that we should be able to see it. I'll get some pictures and maybe share them on Skynet in the future. Slide Master, slide number 10. On March the 16th, the moon and Psycho will be in conjunction in the early morning sky. Slide Master, slide number 11. On March the 20th, the moon and Antares, that's a bright star, will be in conjunction in the early morning sky. Slide Master, slide number 12. On March the 20th, at 4:01 a.m. Central Daylight Time is the vernal equinox and the beginning of spring for the northern hemisphere. On this day, everywhere on the Earth, the sun will rise directly in the east and set directly in the west. The only other day that this happens is the autumnal equinox in September. Slide Master, slide number 13. On March the 28th, the moon and Saturn will be in conjunction in the early morning eastern sky. And this is KF5 JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 14, please. Now, do any of you out there in Radio Land have any questions or need a fill on any of the information? Or do you just have a general astronomy question? Come now with your call sign if you have a question or need a fill. Okay, hearing nothing. Slide Master, slide number 15. Says the moon waned last week, well, about 10 days ago. So do these words for this segment of Skynet. Stay safe, keep well, pray for our world. It's the only one where humans live right now until next time. Actually, I'll be doing another segment on Skynet in a few minutes. Keep looking up so you know what's up. And this is KF5 JHA. Back to our net control. Virginia, it's back to you.
Okay, thank you, Chaz. And it looks like we're going to have a really nice long lunar eclipse on the 13th and 14th. I hope the weather cooperates. This is Virginia NV5S, your net control for Skynet this evening, and we do have another check-in from our website. We want to recognize AA5AH, Robert in Richardson. So welcome to the net, Robert. Appreciate you joining us. And next we have space exploration and space history, and tonight that's going to be Tom, KE5ICX. So thank you, Tom. Give us some space history.
Well, thank you, Virginia, and we'll start with space exploration news. This one is Starship Starship, the spacecraft, the upper portion of the most powerful launch system ever built, exploded during its 8th test flight Thursday, disrupting traffic and marking the second consecutive failure for the vehicle this year. The uncrewed Starship mission lifted off at 5:30 p.m. Central Time from SpaceX Starbase facility in South Texas, with the spacecraft riding atop the 232-foot-tall Super Heavy rocket booster, which, by the way, I could see from my location here in South Texas. After about 2.5 minutes after firing, the Super Heavy booster separated as planned from the Starship's upper stage, setting itself up for a successful landing within the chopstick arms of Megazilla, or SpaceX launch tower near Brownsville, Texas. It's the third time SpaceX has successfully executed the chopsticks booster catch. But less than 10 minutes into the flight, the Starship craft, which had continued on towards space, began to experience issues. Several of the vehicle's engines, visibility cut out during the live stream, and the ship began to tumble before SpaceX lost contact with it. Once you lose enough of those center engines, you're going to lose attitude control, said Don Hook, SpaceX Communications manager on the live stream, so we did see the ship start to go into a spin, and at this point, we have lost contact with the ship. NASA is seeking designs for zero-gravity indicator. NASA is seeking design ideas from global creators for a zero-gravity indicator that will fly aboard the agency's Artemis II test flight. Zero-gravity indicators are small plush items carried aboard the spacecraft to provide visual indication of when the spacecraft and its crew reach space. The opportunity, with the submission deadline of May 27th, asks for original designs representing the significance of NASA's Artemis campaign. The mission or exploration and discovery and meet specific requirements for invite the public inside NASA's Orion spacecraft with us and help us in designing our zero-gravity indicator, said Reed Wiseman, NASA astronaut and Artemis II commander at the agency's Johnson Space Center in Houston. The indicator will float alongside Victor, Christina, Jeremy, and me as we go around the far side of the moon and remind us all of you back on Earth. Up to 25 finalists, including a K through 12 student division, will be selected. The Artemis II crew will choose one design that NASA Thermal Blanket Lab will fabricate to fly alongside them in Orion. Imagine seeing your creation floating weightlessly with astronauts on their way around the moon. Next up are space-related birthdays. We have James Addison, who was born on March 3rd, 1946. He flew on STS-28 and 43. Next up is Bonnie Dunbar. She was born March 3rd, 1949, and flew on STS-61A, 32, 50, 71, and 89. James Voss was born on March 3rd, 1949. And he flew on STS-44, 53, 69, 101, 102, and 105 as part of Expedition 2. Next is Robert Kirpson. He was born on March 5th, 1962, flew on STS-85, 98, and 116. Next is a name I think we'll all recognize, Gordon Cooper, born March 6, 1927. He flew on Mercury Atlas 9 and Gemini 5. And then finally, we have Lauren Action. He was born on March 7th, 1936, and flew on STS-51F. Now on to This Week in Space History. We have on March 3rd, 1915, Congress authorized the creation of the National Advisory Committee for Aeronautics, which is NACA or NACAP, to supervise and direct the scientific study of problems of flight. The committee sought to coordinate the national development of airplane technology already underway at the time, largely in response to the rapid development of European flight capabilities. During the Cold War, the development began to shift to missile technology and spaceflight, culminating with the establishment of NASA in 1958. The foundations of NASA and the success of its many missions rest squarely on the cornerstone of NACA's organizational and technical expertise. On March 5th, 1998, scientists announced that the Lunar Prospector spacecraft had found evidence of hydrogen on both poles of the moon, suggesting the existence of water ice. Based on that, researchers hypothesized the amount of water ice mixed in the regolith ranged between 10 to 300 million metric tons. Launched on January 6, 1998, Lunar Prospector was designed to answer questions about the moon's resource structure and origin. The spacecraft included a neutron spectrometer experiment to detect thermal and epithermal neutrons resulting from normal neutron collisions with hydrogen atoms, an indicator of the presence of water. On March 6, 2015, the Dawn spacecraft went into orbit around Ceres, a dwarf planet in the asteroid belt. Dawn utilized a high-tech ion propulsion system that had allowed it to go into orbit around two different celestial bodies, a first for any spacecraft. Dawn had studied VISTA in 2011 and 2012. And that's it from here. Back to you, Virginia. This is KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you so much, Tom. We appreciate your little journey back through space history this evening. And we're back to Chaz with Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. So take it away, Chaz.
Thank you, Virginia. I forgot to introduce my co-host. That would be Bob the Cat. Yeah. Slide Master, slide number 16. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week is named in honor of Silent T. Carolyn, KC5OZT. Carolyn contributed to Skynet each week, almost from its beginning in 2012 until May of 2019, with a detailed look at one particular constellation each week. Now, since there's about 52 easily visible constellations seen in Texas throughout the year out of the 88 total number of constellations, so Miss Carolyn covered the entire sky seen over North Texas in a year. And in her honor, we've continued that tradition of a constellation per week and named this segment after her. Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week this week is Puppis, the Poop Deck. We'll talk about that in just a moment. The constellation is located in the southern part of the sky, south of the equator. It south of the celestial equator. It represents the stem, or I should say, the stern of the ship, Argo, which is Jason and the Argonauts sailed to get the golden fleece. Puppis is used to be called, it was part of a much larger constellation called Argo Navis before the constellation was divided into several smaller ones. Carina, the keel, Vela, the sails, and Puppis, the stern. Puppis is the largest of the three constellations. To find it, you start with the belt of Orion, draw a line to the southeast of the belt, which should result in running into the brightest star, Sirius. Then going past Sirius to the southeast, you should be able to arrive at Puppis. Now, what I considered one of the most important segments of Skynet are the jokes of the week. Slide Master, slide number 17. If you're not familiar with it, you're welcome to put in the chat session over there on Echolink, your comments about that. I probably can hear you laugh or boo or hiss over the radio, I'm sure. Here we go. Where was the captain sent after he hit another ship? To anchor management, of course. Why does Norway's Navy have barcodes on the side of the ships? So when they come back to port, they can Scandinavian. Come on, that was a funny one. How do Viking ships communicate with each other? With Norris code. Oh, that's an easy one for ham radio operators. Come on. What did the pirate say when his child caught the ship on fire? Arson. Okay, you have to think about that for a minute. Why is it that religious ships never make it far from port? Because they're holy. Maybe I should let that joke sink in. I just watched a documentary on how ships are kept together. It was riveting. Oh, wait, I have some bonus ones. Slide Master, slide number 18. What kind of ships do vampires like the best? Blood vessels. Why is a ship called 3.14? Because it's filled with pirates. And the last one, here we go. Why do ships have circular windows instead of square ones? So if the window breaks, water doesn't hit you square in the face. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 19. So Chi Puppis is Amidisci. It's a really hard one to pronounce. I hope I pronounced it right. It's a misplacement and a mistransliteration of another word, the traditional name for the nearby star Iota Carina, which is derived from the Greek word meaning shield, which may reference the shields that Jason and the Argonauts carried with them on their ship, the Argo. It's a G-type star or a yellowish star. It looks yellow in a telescope. By the way, the sun is a G-type star. Kappa Puppis is a nice double star. It is easy to split. Both stars appear to be yellowish white. The two stars are so identical in color and brightness, they look like a distant set of car headlights. Slide Master, slide number 20, please. M46. M46 is a nice open cluster. It's easy to find, as nearby M47 is visible to the naked eye from dark skies sight as well. Both clusters are obvious in a finder scope. M46 fills the field of view in a 25 millimeter eyepiece at 84 power. There are many stars of varying brightness, but none that particularly stand out, giving the initial impression of somewhat uniform brightness. A planetary nebula, NGC 2438, is inside this star cluster. Wow, interesting. Slide Master, slide number 21. M47 that I've already mentioned can be seen from the dark sky side as a bright patch in the Milky Way. Visually, it's a very different cluster than M46. Overall, it is much more sparsely populated than M46, but its stars are mostly brighter, and they are more varied in brightness than those of M46. Slide Master, slide number 22. And Messi object M93 is an easily spotted in a 50 millimeter finder scope as a fuzzy glow near the star that we were talking about earlier, Iota. My goodness, I've forgotten it. Is a sparsely, fairly sparse cluster of stars at mostly uniform brightness. There are two stars that are somewhat brighter. One is a blue-white, and the other one is noticeably an orange-red color. And this is KF5JHA, and this is Skynet. Slide Master, slide number 23, please. I'm getting distracted because Bob the Cat wants out on the balcony. There are a few more Astronomical League observing program objects in the constellation of Puppis, the stern of the ship. I've just given you a sampling of some of those objects. The Astronomical League has, at last count, 74 different observing programs, most of which have about 100 objects. So, if you just observe 10 different objects in an observing program from the Astronomical League each month, then you can earn a certificate and a pin in about a year. And Slide Master, slide number 24, that is Miss Carolyn's Constellation of the Week. Puppis, the poop deck, or the stern of the ship. I want to thank my friends Dave Hutchinson and Dennis Harwell for the research and words on deep sky objects that I've used, borrow, and I steal for every Skynet. I also at times use the website constellation-guide.com for information. Now, next week we'll take a look at a twofer: Lynx, the wildcat, and Cancer the crab. And this is KF5JHA. Chaz saying good night, and 73 back to our net control. I should say Bob the Cat saying good night as well.
Okay, thank you, Chaz and Bob. Appreciate the always wonderful constellation and accompanying jokes. And now we have space launches for this week with Tom, KE5ICX. Tom, if you'd like to go ahead and do the satellite passages as well, that would be fine.
thank you, Virginia, and this is KE5ICX. As we speak, I don't know if this is happening, I don't have it brought up, but there is a Starlink 12-21 launch going on right now from 11 at 10 p.m. This is from SLC-40 at Cape Canaveral Station. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch another batch of Starlink V2 mini satellites into Earth orbit, a little more than 8 minutes after liftoff. The first stage booster will target a landing on the drone ship a short fall of gravitas. We have on March 12th, Falcon 9 Crew 10 launch. This is from Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch 3 astronauts and a cosmonaut to the International Space Station. The quartet will fly aboard the Crew Dragon spacecraft named Endurance. Originally, the crew was to fly on C-213 Crew Dragon, yet to be named, but swapped the vehicle to compensate for the fact that C-213 still needed additional work before it could fly. The mission will carry NASA astronauts Ann McCain, Nicholas Ayers, along with Japanese Aerospace Exploration Agency astronaut Takuya Omishi and Roscosmos cosmonaut Kirill Peshkov. This will be the second space flight for both McCain and Onishi, and the first for both Ayers and Peshkov. Then in spring, we will have the New Glenn Escapade launch. That's to be determined. We don't know exactly when. Launch Complex 36 at Cape Canaveral. The New Glenn rocket will launch a pair of identical spacecraft, Escapade and and Plasma Acceleration Dynamics mission. I guess that's just the name. 2 satellites named Blue and Gold will make a roughly 11-month journey to Mars, where they will perform about an 11-month science mission while orbiting the red planet. Blue and Gold were manufactured by Rocket Lab over 3.5 years and carry science experiments from the University of California, Berkeley. We have March 15th, 16th Alpha, Message in a Booster, it's called. This will be from Vandenberg Space Force Base in California, SLC-2. A Firefly Aerospace Alpha rocket will launch the Lockheed Martin's LM-400 satellite bus to low Earth orbit. The 6th launch of the Alpha rocket, designated FLTA-006, marks the second flight within the multi-launch agreement between Firefly and Lockheed Martin. Next up is the Falcon 9 Transporter 3 launch, to be determined. This is in March, SOC-4E from Vandenberg. The Falcon 9 rocket will launch dozens of satellites on the company's 13th small sat ride-share mission to the sun-synchronous orbit. Among with the rocket satellites are a trio of CubeSats for NASA's Electrojet Zeeman Imaging Explorer EASY mission. Our Raker 1, the first microsatellite from Kongsberg Nano Avionics N3X Constellation, the BOPSat-1 satellite for Botswana. Less than 8 minutes after liftoff, the first stage booster will return for a touchdown and landing near the launch site. Spring of 2025, Alpha will launch Message in a Booster. I think this was already covered earlier. Yeah, this one's already covered. Let me go, I guess it's duplicate on this list. April 8th will be a launch of Soyuz 2.1A, MS-27S-73 from Baikonur Cosmodrome. This will be a Russian Soyuz 2.1A rocket, which will launch a 3-man crew to the International Space Station. Crew commander Sergei Ryzhikov will be joined by fellow cosmonaut Alexei with the ISS at about 5:04 a.m. Eastern Daylight Time. The spacecraft will remain docked with the orbiting outpost until December 8, 2025. This will be the third spaceflight for Ryzhikov and the first for both Sabrinsky and Kim. Let's see here. I'm going to skip on down to visible satellite passages coming up. We do have the International Space Station has a number of good ones. I don't know if I'm going to do them all or not. Well, I guess I could. We have March 10th. This one will be a minus 2.7 magnitude at 2022 in the evening. Reach its highest point at 27 degrees at 2025 and will fall to the east at 2026. We have March 12th, the following evening, a minus 3.7 magnitude, 2021 in the evening, out of the southwest, reach its highest point at 78 degrees. March 13th has a good pass, minus 1.0 magnitude, 2111. Out of the west-northwest, reaches highest point at 15 degrees at 2113, and falls to the north at 2115. March 14th, minus 1.6 magnitude, 2022. Out of the west, it reaches highest point at 24 degrees at 2025. Yes, lots of numbers, and it will fall to the north-northeast at 2028. And then finally, I'll just leave it there. The March 16th one isn't much. Now, I said all that, too, because Tiangong, which is the other space station in orbit, had no passes that we could really see. So that's it. I have given you everything that I know on those two top topics for this week. Back to you, Virginia. This is KE5ICX.
Okay, thank you so much, Tom, for all of that. There's so much to see in the sky this next week, so hope everybody will keep looking up. Do we have any more additional check-ins for the net? Please come now with your call, your name, and your location.
Kilo 5, Juliet Delta Whiskey, Mobile, Carrollton.
Kilo Bravo 9, Sierra Oscar Kilo, Sean, Fort Worth.
Okay, we've added K5JDW in Carrollton, Mobile, I think he said, and then we have KV9SOK Sean in Fort Worth. So thanks you guys for joining us this evening. And we are just about out of time. So we had about 22 hams check into Skynet this evening, and we appreciate everybody joining us for another wonderful week of space and astronomy. Tonight we did have 22 hams. We hope you'll all join us here next week and every Saturday night at 9 p.m. to discuss astronomy, space, and space exploration. On this net, the sky is never the limit. We're always looking for net control stations for this and all the other DARC nets. If you would like to try your hand at this, contact any of the net controls by sending an email to nets@w5sc.org. You can follow the topics and discussion about this net and astronomy in general on Facebook and X, as well as our audio and video streams, video archives, and other useful Internet resources by going to w5sc.org at the conclusion of this net. And until next Saturday night, this is ND5S. My name is Virginia, and I will be closing the net at, let's see, we're looking at about 10:28 local time. Everybody, don't forget to spring forward, and I will be returning the repeater to the normal amateur use for a few minutes until we have the afterglow. 73, everybody, and enjoy the evening discovering the universe. This is ND5S.
Normal state.
Net in about 5 minutes. That's enough time to go make some microwave popcorn. Don't burn it this time, though. So come back in 5 minutes, and we'll start up the net. Tonight's movie is The Terminal Man from 1974. See you then. KE5ICX.
And I am not going to make it tonight for Afterglow. I am super tired, and I haven't seen the movie, and I have to get up early for one more day of CERT classes tomorrow, so I hope you guys enjoy.
I'm completely operational, and all my circuits are functioning perfectly.
Afterglow Movie Net.
All right. Well, have a good evening. Don't dream of any robot machines taking over the world. That's very bad. Just thought I'd let you know. Michael Crichton says so. Good night. KE5ICX. All right. Time is up. 1974. blackouts, after which he wakens to unfamiliar surroundings with indications of violent behavior on his part. He also suffers from delusions and computers that will rise up against humans. Benson suffers from an acute disabilitatory lesion syndrome and consents to an experimental psychosurgical procedure known as Stage 3. Stage 3 requires surgeons to implant electrodes in his brain, which will detect the onset of the seizure and then use an electrical impulse to stop it. Benson's psychiatrist, Janet Ross, opposes the procedure, concerned that once the operation is complete, Benson will suffer further psychosis as the result of his person merging with that of a computer, something he has come to distrust and disdain. Surgery does initially appear to be successful, but 2 days after the operation, it is apparent that his brain has become addicted to the electrical impulses. The seizures are triggering in increasingly shorter intervals. When they become continuous, Benson will be in a permanent blackout with violent behavior that goes with it. Just before Ross realizes what is happening, Benson escapes from the hospital. He becomes unpredictably violent, but his intact intelligence allows him to evade police for a considerable time, at one point confronting Ross in her home. Benson goes to a cemetery where he falls into a freshly dug grave. A procession walking towards the grave notice him in the grave with a gun and alert the authorities. Ross arrives and pleads with Benson to allow her to help him, but is held back as police helicopter shoots him as he attempts to raise his gun, falling from the Empire State Building. No, that's not the wrong movie. The film ends with some doctors opening a peephole, looking into a camera, and telling the audience they are next for the medical procedure. Had George Segal as Henry Benson. That was a bit of an interesting thing, as George Segal is mostly a comedian. Joan Hackett. Richard Dysart as Dr. John Ellis, Joe Claver, and Donald Moffat, a bunch of other people you don't care about. Let's see, says here Stanley Kubrick was a Hodges admirer, who was the director. Any actor who sees Get Carter will want to work with him. With Mike Kaplan, a Warner Brothers International marketing executive, attempted to override Warner Brothers' decision not to release the film in Britain. He sought Kubrick's help. After explaining the situation and how the film required a different marketing campaign, Kubrick interrupted with, "I've already seen it and it's terrific." So anyway, there you go. There was a release at 2003 at Edinburgh Film Festival as an alternate version called The Director's Cut, which Hodges edited himself by removing the self-contained opening expository scene of the doctor looking at photographs of Henry Benson. Production studio notes it insisted the scene would give the audience someone to root for. I am one of those guys that's going to say, I don't disagree with them on that. Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and get started. We will take check-ins. I'll ask for your call sign, your name, and did you see the film. It is not required that you have seen the film to check in. If you're out there and you just want to say hi, by all means, do so. The first round, after we get check-ins, we'll be talking about the plot, followed by a second round with acting and the characterization, and then a third round, which might be abbreviated depending on how long we go. We'll talk about special effects, music, lighting, sound, anything you want, or anything that you missed on the first two rounds you'd like to discuss. This net runs about 90 minutes. Ready to call it quits. So here we go. I will take check-ins. Please come with your call sign phonetically. Did you see your name, and did you see tonight's movie, The Terminal Man from 1974? Here we go.
This is November Tango 5, Tango Mike, Tony and Dallas. I have seen about a third of the movie, and I'm very intrigued.
WB5OZL, name is Brenda. Yes, I saw the movie.
This is Kilo Golf 5, Bravo Zulu Whiskey, Jay near Wefford. I'm just on the last, 6 or so minutes of it. I've seen most of it.
Whiskey 5, bacon, lettuce, tomato. Bill? Saw the movie, read the book, saw the movie again, read the online script.
This is Whiskey 5 Echo Bravo Bravo. David in Dallas. Yes, in Dallas. Springtown. Yes, I saw the movie.
All right, let me go ahead and get these folks checked in. I got NT5TM, Tony in Dallas. He's seen about a third of the film, and he likes it so far. Jay, KG5BZW near Weatherford. Yes, he saw the film. WB5OZL, Brenda. Yes, she saw the film. W5BLT, Mr. Tomato. Bill, he saw it. And then W5EBB, David makes an appearance in Dallas. Yes, he saw the film. Anyone else like to check in? Please come to your call. Your name. Did you see the film? Okay, no problem. We'll see what happens. This was a sky-worn day for a lot of people, so this might be a little more sparse than normal. We'll see how this all plays out. But I'll do this in the order that everyone checked in. So we'll start with Tony, NT5TM. Tony, from what you saw, what do you like about it, especially the plot from KE5I6?
Hey, Tom, yeah, I got up at about 4:45 and then later went to a VE session, came home and took a nap. That said, the nap recharged me a lot, and I was looking at this, and ooh, it was spooky and ominous. I actually didn't think the opening montage was bad. It was mostly told with stills, like in La Jetée. I thought that was still pretty artsy. Yes, it may have been introduced by the studio, but they did it in a way that was compatible with the rest of the film, at least the part I've seen. And then with wheeling our protagonist into the hospital with the handcuffs and the police officers, and that army of doctors and nurses in their uniforms watching the presentation, ooh, it seemed very ominous and not like something in real life. So I was impressed and intrigued, and I felt a little frightened. And so I'm probably going to watch the rest of the movie tomorrow. I'm sorry I ran out of time today, but I really thought that what I saw was both photographed and plotted in a way to feel threatening. And that is a good intro to a movie. All these regimented professionals, all these carefully composed shots. Yeah, getting a little scared here. Something's going to happen. I don't know what, but something's going to happen, and I think I'm not going to like it. And it's a movie, so that's okay. NT5TM.
Quickly, because you're going to end up with spoilers if you keep listening to us, and they're probably coming up in a matter of seconds, so be ready. You may be surprised, you may be disappointed, but you will be informed. Next up is Jay, KG5BZW. Welcome back, Jay. What did you think about the plot for our fine film, The Terminal Man from 1974?
All right. Well, this is KG5BZW. I don't hate the film. I have some disagreements with a certain bits of it, just what they chose to do. Although it was kind of interesting, and Tony is right. It is ominous throughout the film. Part of it's the use of that. I don't know, is it called postmodern architecture of the 70s? That, I mean, just everything's just white and colorless, and I'm sure they did that partly to play into, on this theme and whatnot. I don't mind that. It's just, literally the half the movie is just them doing the surgery, which is interesting, and it's not just them doing the surgery, just everything around the surgery, the conversations rely around it, the observation deck of the surgery. I mean, it was interesting if you were interested in that. And I'll say this. Actually, let me reset. Since my mom, well, I don't need to go into too many details, but she did have brain surgery, and it was kind of, I wasn't there to observe it or anything for sure, but actually, now that I think about what I'm thinking of isn't related to the surgery, but the radiotherapy afterwards, but which the gamma therapy, I should say. I'm just thinking about how they have to isolate the skull and all that, and there's just a lot of interesting little bits and stuff. And I don't know how accurate it was. I saw later in the film that they made some statements which didn't make any sense to me about like blood type through semen. Blood types are generally, I mean, there's all kinds of blood types, Rh positive, negative, and generally the particular blood type is a protein on the actual surface of blood cells, which shouldn't be in semen. So it's like, what? What is this? I Crichton tends to be very good at making medical nonsense, I think. But he does it in such a good way that it's hard to, I can still respect it. And then so you had the first part, and then you had the psychopathic killer bit, which was interesting. So yeah, it's all horror. It's not bad. It did kind of drone on. I literally was I was kind of laying down because I needed to. I just had to find myself something comfy because I ended up getting myself a little bit too cold today, so I had to get myself under a blanket. But I almost dozed off. Like I caught myself literally dozing, micro sleeping in two parts of it because it was so slow. I don't know what they could have done. I'm not sure what the intent was. Obviously, a procedure is going to last a lot longer than the 50 or so minutes that it was portrayed. So You know, it got the feeling over. Maybe that's the way, and I think so. I think that there's even the actor saying, "I've never seen anything so." I mean, I've never. Oh, I'm paraphrasing. You know, these procedures are I've never. I'm trying to say it. Simultaneously nerve-wracking and boring, which kind of catches the theme of that segment. But I don't know. I don't hate this film. It was worth watching. I'll leave it at that. KG5BGW.
All right, thank you, Jay. Let's see. Next up is Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda, what did you think about the plot for our film tonight, The Terminal Man from 1974?
This is WB5OZL. Well, I had never seen this movie before, although I'd heard about it. And it was okay. It wasn't as nearly as good as the Andromeda Strain. But it was interesting, fascinating concepts. The idea of putting computers in us. It was either Clark or Asimov. Somebody asked him, what is the next evolutionary step for humans? And he said it'll be part machine, part human. That will merge us into a different organism. Maybe so. Could be we may have to have machines in us to fix our kidneys and livers or brains. You know, that might help with Alzheimer's. I don't know. But it didn't do him a whole lot of good. Well, we'll talk about acting later. But the story, I mean, it was really kind of simple. This guy had a problem, and they stuck a thing in his brain, and then it got worse, and then they shot him. So, I would have liked a little more, something a little more positive out of this. You just kind of had a sense of dread and foreboding throughout this, as you knew it wasn't going to go very well. I don't know how good the medical stuff was. Michael Crichton actually had an MD, but he never practiced. He decided he'd like to write instead. So I would assume that the medical things were reasonably authentic, but I don't know. Of course, it's science fiction. They're making stuff up. And so, okay, back to net, WB5OZL.
All right, thank you, Brenda. Thanks for your comments. Next is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, what did you think about the plot for our fine film this evening from KE5ICX?
Well, I'm not sure what because Warner Brothers was thinking. They replaced Michael Crichton, saying that he wasn't following the script, in the storyline enough, and so they replaced him with Mike Hodges. So I watched the movie. I was totally lost. I mean, I understood the concept, but there was a lot of scenes that I was missing out on. Couldn't really tell what was going on, and I think that's due to the visual impairment. So I downloaded the book and read it, and went back and watched the movie. And there are some big differences between the book and the movie. I won't go into everything, but the ending in the movie was different than the book. Yes, the resulted, the end result was the same, but in the book, our character, Harry Vance, is trying to destroy the computer. He destroys the computer, and the book has more character development. I'll get into that, but the movie, I think, the first half was the surgery, and it was kind of slow moving, and then it started getting kind of good here. We got to wrap it up in 40 minutes, and so they kind of moved very fast. I would have liked to have seen maybe a little bit longer movie and a little bit more plot development and things like that. It's kind of a simple plot. The guy has some brain problems. We're going to put a chip in him and try to solve it. It didn't work, and that's the summary of it. But I think it could have been done better. Although I think it was the highest grossing movie of the summer in '74, or at least in that month, in June. Interestingly enough, it didn't show in the UK, I guess. So I don't know. The book was definitely, and I go back to this because I went to the book because the movie was kind of dark and it was kind of hard to follow for me being totally blind. And so I'm normally really like Michael Crichton, so I was kind of expecting a little more from the movie and the plot. And I think it has nothing to do with Michael Crichton, the way that it was put together. So I found the book much more interesting because it delves into all of this stuff about the pros and cons and should or shouldn't we try to stop people who are violent by implanting a chip. And I found the book went much more into the technology aspects of it. And so he actually had a bibliography at the end of the book. And so it filled in a lot of gaps. So I went back and have to say I enjoyed watching the movie a second time better. So it's not one that I would go back again. I don't regret watching it like some of Brenda's other movies, just kidding, Brenda. But so it's not the worst one we've seen, but it's not one that I would probably tell people you have to run out and go see. Tony, I think you should watch it, but I think you should read the book, and the book was much better. Back to you, Tom, W5BLT.
All right, thank you, Bill, and thanks for your take on that. Next up is David, W5EBB. David, you made an appearance. I'm sure you have copious notes. What do you got for us this evening about the plot from KE5ICX?
Well, thanks, Tom. Yeah, this was an interesting movie. It got off to a good start. And it had promise, but ultimately it kind of trailed off into a typical killer on the loose kind of trope. But during the patient during the rampage, if he had just had moments of clarity and introspection, regret, a plot that expounded upon that internal turmoil, it would have made for a much better movie, more interesting and thought-provoking. But alas, it didn't do that. Some of the props that they described in the surgery, which was way too long. It was 15 minutes worth of footage that was tedious and could have been shortened. But in describing the postage-sized computer with an atomic battery pack implanted in the shoulder, because Mr. Fusion Mini hadn't been invented yet. But that was during the period where atomic everything was the thing. Everything was going to be atomic power, miniaturized. But no, of course that didn't happen. Now, as for the plot, if they had chosen an unpleasant sensation rather than a pleasurable one to arrest his seizure, then it may have been a successful outcome. But they just chose the wrong sensation because he became like that monkey that keeps hitting the button to get more morphine, and it was just an endless loop. At the end, the doctor's pontificating on the benefits of this kind of surgery, even given the risk. Well, that kind of points to the two sides of the coin of medicine. Sometimes it does actually fix people, and in other times there's the dark side, the profit motive, more about keeping people broken in a manageable and profitable way. So they could have explored that a little bit more too, but I guess that's for the viewer to kind of decide for him or herself. W5EBB.
All right, thank you, David, and good comment. I will now ask, we're at the bottom of the list, anyone else who would like to join us this evening? Please come with your call, your name, and did you see tonight's movie, The Terminal Man, from 1974? That's optional. You don't have to have seen the film. If you just want to join us, that's perfectly fine, too. Please come now. I took some notes from everybody. Let's see. Wait, what about the cyborg thing? Which, by the way, I think you wrote a book about cyborgs, man and machine type of thing, or machines that look like men. Don't forget, we've had this man and machine things going on for a long time. Eyeglasses is an example of that. It helped to improve life by making it possible to see better and leveling a playing field. Let's see here if I can read my notes. First off, maybe this is more technical and should come towards the end, but I found it somewhat distracting, and I always do. This film, it looks like, was filmed in an actual location. I'm sure that there were some sets somewhere in there, but they look like they were more like filmed in actual structures in most places. And as is always the case, or nearly always the case, you end up with a huge amount of echo, noise, hard to understand. I find that immensely distracting, and I know in art house films and low-budget films, we get this, and some people applaud that and say that's a great way to make a film, and it's a great director, Hodges in this case, and I'm sure his work was on display. I saw some good things, but this is the most annoying thing to me. I guess I'm going to shake my cane in the air and say I don't like that. If you're going to produce something and you want to be immersed in it as an audience member, make the sound, make the visuals, make the picture good enough that I feel like I'm a part of the film and not watching a film that's too dark, too quiet, too echoey, too all of that. So that was an annoying part for me. The creepiness factor, definitely there. I think that was, of course, by design. Michael Crichton had wanted to create that, and I think Hodges did do a good job with that, with the uniforms and all. I thought that was interesting. Now, here's something that always drives me nuts with the mad scientist, Frankenstein, whatever you want to call it, or any science fiction show, mainly from the 60s, because it's what I remember growing up, where somebody does their life work to make something happen, right? And then they get very anxious, and then very quickly they want to get everything done. They'll spend decades working on things, and then the story that you see is they rush the process through to disastrous results. This was one of those, but it was afterwards. We've got this guy, he has his neural implants, he's got a radiation in his chest, and what's the first thing they do after they finish with the operation? They go and drink and smoke and celebrate. If I'm the doctor that did the surgery, I'm not going to go and drink and smoke. I'm probably going to sit there and nail bite, hoping that the guy doesn't die in the room. But no, we're okay. And then the incompetent staff, now this is believable, lose the guy because they're not paying attention. That I do believe would happen. but not being able to find him for hours at a time, not so much. That was the second half of the film, and I found that rather annoying and somewhat, it's a trope. There are tropes that have been done before, and I think David mentioned that as well. In any case, that just kind of annoyed me because I've seen this so many times before, and I feel like I want to throw something at the screen when they do that. I prefer moral pieces with this, which goes back again to like Frankenstein or any of the technology type stories that we've heard in the past. This is not the first time. This one has to do with surgery, and I think that was covered by Lewis Sinclair and Aerosmith and a few other stories as well. So that's not new. I think they could have probably done it a little better. I did not read this book. I wish I had. I did like his stuff. I saw The Andromeda Strain, and then I immediately got the book. And I devoured it. I thought it was great and very enjoyable. And I'm sure this follows in the same path. He discusses these things, but he really goes for the technical aspects first and foremost. And that's fine. But the ethical part with the annoying to me, I would have preferred that they had argued it out more and there wasn't a lot of argument about it. They said, oh, well, let's go ahead and do it. And everybody just kept being creepy through the whole thing. And that kind of made the message even heavy-handed. So I wasn't as happy with that. I suspect that the book was much better in that department, but again, he was a technical wonk, so expect this type of almost procedural, which is what they do show you. Like the idea that they went in and put probes in, and then they would stimulate the nerves, the neural net, to get a response. And I do remember watching a documentary back around that time frame where they were doing exactly that, and they were stimulating memories. I thought that was really cool. It was a great idea. It helped to introduce the audience to what that might mean and what electrostimulation would do. However, it was only taken to just a very elemental level in the end. And I guess that's okay. I mean, this has been very early in those days anyway, and the surgery would probably have been exactly what they described. And it makes a lot of sense. But imagining that he's taking this to a higher level, perhaps, hallucinations with maybe not getting the thing to the right level, I don't know. That's a writing piece that could come from the screenwriter or from the author. I don't know. I think it could have been done a little more pronounced and a little smarter than it was, but it was okay. I didn't mind that. The operation was way too damn long. They spent forever on that. The description of it was rather... I'll talk about characterization and our protagonist in this in the next round because I have a bunch to say about that. I think that's it. I'm going to stop there. I did like the film. I'd give it a grade of A to F. I'd give it a B+, maybe an A-. If I'd seen it for the first time back in the 1970s, I probably would have given it an A-, or even an A, because it would have been something I'd not seen before, exactly like that, with a true science type profile. So there you have it. Okay, well, we are now going to round two. We'll be discussing characterization. So we'll start with Tony, NT5TM. Tony, what did you think about characterization?
Well, you folks haven't scared me off yet. I still want to watch the rest of this. I didn't really think of much except the protagonist, and he did seem to have some Jekyll and Hyde character to him. He arrived in handcuffs for the police escort, and the nursing staff seemed afraid of him, but also maybe willing to take the handcuffs off. So with the little bit I've seen, I found it intriguing, but don't have much to say yet, other than the one guy who's going to turn out to be, operated on. No one actually seemed very interesting, but that could change. NT5TM.
All right, good enough. We'll go with that. Next is Jay, KG5BZW. Jay, what did you think about characterization and acting in our film The Terminal Man from 1974?
All right, this is KG5BZW. And yeah, no, there is definitely the Jekyll and Hyde thing going on. But that, it kind of, and I kind of wish it actually did more of that toward the end. Granted, I know that, I don't know, the last bits are a bit confusing because, so he has these, I don't want to get into too much into plot. I try not to spoil, but so basically, the gist is, he had this condition which puts him in essentially a very violent rage, and the thing that bugged me the most is that towards the end he was, why did he turn psychopathic? It didn't really make that much sense to me. Yes, he has anger issues to the extreme. That's basically it. But they also made him a psychopath. And why did they do that? I just don't know. It's actually kind of out of character for what. If he had been, measured for psychopathy, prior to this, they wouldn't have authorized the surgery, But that's the kind of character. I think we're supposed to be led to believe that these actual when he goes full tilt, as I believe one of the doctors put it, that changed him somehow. But not enough was really explained there. I did. I mean, none of the as far as the other characters, the woman psychologist who, I'm not sure what she was, but she wasn't in surgery, and indeed flipped off the surgeon for making a kind of crude remark about, say, we do real stuff, and it's like, during the surgery, and it's like, yeah, yeah, I kind of could appreciate that. I'm paraphrasing a lot there, but I don't know. I liked her character. As far as growth, there's no character growth. It is procedural, so you get what you kind of expect with a Crichton film. That's the characters. Even in Andromeda, the strain, you have to deal with different conditions and whatnot, and I don't know, it was a lot better in that. Here, maybe you get to see the doctors, we've got the solution, and then you get to see their egos deflate a little bit after they realize that this didn't quite work out. Other than that, I don't know. They aren't that memorable. It's not really about the characters that much. Besides the main character, of course, it's about the tech, the science or whatever. It's all about that, and I mean, it is what it is. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm sure I could say a little bit more, something better, but it's tired. I'm tired. I'll hand it to the next person. KG5BCW.
All right, thank you, Jay. And next up would be Brenda, I believe, WB50ZL. Brenda, what did you think about characterization and acting in our fine film from KE5ICX?
This is WB50ZL. Well, George Siegel was the only character who came to life. All the others are just, to me, just background. There just was very little characterization of all those people. I couldn't tell them apart. Didn't know much about them. But he was rather brilliant as an actor. His range is amazing. He starred in 1 million movies and is pretty good. So I think he was right for the part, but I just have a problem with a movie where I can't, don't really identify with anybody, or don't really like anybody in the movie. He was, it's hard to like somebody that just does random murders. So. He was kind of a pointless human. He had this disastrous problem, and then they tried to fix it. It didn't go well, and then he ends up killing people, and then they murder him. This is not the kind of movie I normally like to see. I'd like to see some personal growth or exploration or resolution of conflict or funny or something. This was just depressing, and it had a bad ending, and it was just sad. It was interesting, the idea of altering people, although that's a slippery slope when you start fixing people or changing people with little computers in them. That's, I think, obviously dangerous. Well, it certainly was in this case. So I don't know what else I would have done with it. It was interesting, although that surgery scene was interminable and in its day, of course, back in '74, there was a lot of talk at that time of half human, half person, half machine or half human. It was a lot of curiosity about it, a lot of thought about it. So I think this movie was an expression of that interest. Okay.
All right, thank you, Brenda. I think you were done. You got cut off, but I think you were just concluding. Next up is Bill, W5BLT. Bill, what did you think about the characterization and acting in our film from KE5ICX?
I think they work with what the script they have. George, pronouncing that right. I'm pronouncing it the way the voice synthesizer says it. Originally, people questioned that part because I think he was known as a comedic actor. But I think he did a good job. As Harry, we had Joan Hackett as Janet Ross. All these guys, as I look through the list, I don't think anybody was a bad actor in this. I just think that the way, when you base a movie on a book, you always have to cut some things, I guess, and move some things around. But there just wasn't a lot of character development, and so you didn't feel for, I think, Harry Benson, and like you should. You didn't understand the doctor's motives like you should. Why were they doing this? What was the background of the doctors? We have this Janet Ross that's playing, kind of, I think, the psychologist. I don't remember her being a psychologist in the book, but she was the one in the book speaking out against this surgery, and you kind of got her reasons in the book, motivation, and it just wrestled more with what was motivating the characters, and I know in an hour and 40 minutes or so, that's hard to do, but I think if they had spent a little less time on the surgery and a little, maybe back then, brain surgery was fascinating, so maybe that was cool in certain respects, and I do take issue with the whole epilepsy thing. Most people I know that are epileptics aren't going out and trying to hurt people. So that, in the book they explained about the car accident more and the brain injury, and so we didn't get that from the movie. So you weren't really left feeling bad about this guy's ending, and you weren't really left with a feeling of anybody taking responsibility for anything. The book I thought was much more exciting because Harry Benson ends up going back to the hospital to try to take out the computer. I won't say exactly how the book ends, but there was just more about his IQ, his fear of computers, taking over the world, and not wanting to be controlled by them, and it just delved into more about the characters, and I think they could have cut down on the surgery, they could have extended it for 20 more minutes or so, done a little more character development, and we'd get some empathy for everybody involved. And I think it would have made it a much more interesting film. I mean, don't get me wrong, this is not the worst film we've seen. I was going to save this for the last part, Tom, but you beat me on it about the audio and things like that. That also made it hard to get into the characters and feel for anybody, because you had to keep, I had to keep rewinding to go, okay, did I hear that right? And yeah, I have a hearing impairment, but I have my hearing aids cranked, and there's other movies where I don't have to do that, and the audio is very clear. I mean, you think of things that were done in other movies around that time that were released. I think in that year there were quite a few good movies released. Mel Brooks had some movies, and there were some other really good movies at that time, and you could understand the audio. So I'm not sure where the ball got dropped on this, but that did take away from the characters, because it just made it hard to get into. So I think the book, if you watch the film, grab the book. I think it's a much better read. 35 BLT.
All right, thank you, Bill. And it cut off again, so I think you were done as well. Yeah, I'm glad you were able to report on the book again, too, simply because I like Michael Crichton's writing. And it nearly always, very rarely, is the film better than the book. But sometimes that does happen, and this is not one of those times, apparently, but thanks. Appreciate the comments. Next up is David, W5EBB. David, your comments on characterization and acting from KE5ICX.
Well, thanks, Tom. George Segal, I think, I don't think he was a good match for this particular role. He's better in his affable socialite roles. But here, when he's having the seizure and turns into Mr. Hyde, he looks very stiff, in his physical performance, borderline comical. It kind of reminded me of Bela Lugosi in Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman. Not a good choice, I don't think. Anthony Hopkins would have been a great choice, both for physical and for the psychological aspect. It was interesting to see that Richard Dysart would reprise his role as a doctor in The Thing in 1982, along with Donald Moffat, also in this movie, who was featured in the scene of comic relief when he was being asked to be untied from the couch. The naysaying old doctor was the voice of reason in this movie, critical of the brain procedure, and he asserted that lobotomies were only no longer performed not because of how gruesome they were, but because tranquilizing drugs were introduced. And I did some fact checking, and this apparently was true, that chlorpromazine was introduced in 1950 as an antipsychotic. Of course, this was all too late to help Rosemary Kennedy. But that drug had its own side effects, including weight gain and tardive dyskinesia, which even today's antidepressants have those same side effects. So nothing was fixed, but there are drugs to fix the side effect. It's sort of a pharmacological recursion loop, but it is what it is. But yeah, the characters were just pretty much one-dimensional for the most part in the movie. W5EBB.
Thank you for your comments, David, and you are correct. All those things were real and did happen. I remember there was a thing done a couple of years ago, I remember listening to it, talking about, I'm getting tired. I'll take that in just a second, but at any rate, yes, that everything that was mentioned was technically correct, but that's what you would expect from Crichton. He was always one to do his research and know his subject matter pretty well, and that was rather important. Okay, let me, before I make my comments, see if anyone else is out there. Like, join us if you'd like to discuss The Terminal Man from 1974. That's our movie this week. Please come with your call, your name, did you see the film? And that's optional. If you haven't seen it, that's okay, too. If anyone's out there, like, check in, please come now. All right, I'll make some comments. It's always great to be the guy that does the net control on this because you can build on everybody else's comments, and that's what I'm doing right here. I think it was Brenda mentioned no personal growth or progression. I agree with that. We didn't, and that is always a hot spot I have with any film. If your main character doesn't grow in some constructive way, the film leaves you, is sometimes lacking. You don't get what you want out of the film, which satisfaction as an audience member to say, I spent my my money, watched my 2+ hours or 2 hours of a movie, and I came out a better person or a more informed person. I guess the informed person's fine, but the better person not so much, because we have no role model that's positive. All the doctors are pretty much opportunists and looking to pass the buck if something goes wrong and take the glory when things go right. And who cares about those people? We don't like them anyway. But everybody who was in it that played a doctor, and there's a lot of them, they sure as heck fulfilled their debaucherous role along the way. So nothing surprising there, I guess. No empathy. Well, that was mentioned as well. No, I didn't feel any sort of empathy for any of the characters, really. And the Harry Benson character, we really didn't know anything about him that much. He was a genius, I guess, and we got some of that, but not enough of him. If he's a genius, we should be able to see his brain ticking all through this and how he's going to manipulate it all. It sounds more like he's a victim, but I'll bet you, and I think maybe Bill can clarify that, if Benson was smart enough and he was a genius to be able to manipulate what was going on cognitively, that might have been interesting, the unknown or unexpected effect. Now, again, that would be a trope as well, but it kind of gives the impression that it was accidental, that the doctors did not do enough research to figure out exactly what would happen. Now, they did the monkeys, I guess, through the thing, but because they're a lower intelligence, we don't know whether it was, the high IQ thing that actually caused this to happen or not. From watching the film and the way it progresses, I think they almost abandoned that. They should have actually exploited that and made Benson even more dangerous to everyone else, because he could manipulate what was going on and use that feedback loop. But I'm not entirely sure I saw that in this film. I didn't watch it, and we didn't have a lot of discussion on this one because we were all watching the film, being good boys and girls, and doing what we're supposed to do is review and preview the movie. So I don't know. But overall, I was somewhat left lacking when it came to the characterization. All the other characters pretty much were unempathetic, so why do I care about them except to see them go to jail? And then our main character dies at the end. Oh, come on. There's nothing to be said. And then we're next. Oh, okay. Fine, thank you very much. I guess that's a horror story trope that you can do along the way. Okay. I don't think it was the great masterpiece that Stanley thinks that it was, and that's coming from a guy who wrote movies that hated the guy. Just my opinion, at least on this one. Okay, well, that takes care of that. We'll take our third round. We've got time. We should be able to get through it. The third round is anything you want to discuss. These could be of a technical nature. We have picked up a couple of things along the way, but if you want to do that more, you can talk about music or lack thereof, audio, picture quality. You can talk about the technical aspects of the film, like our little robot or not so little robot that goes looking for the mouse. I don't know. Did it age well? Would be a good one, I suppose. I don't know. You get the idea. So we'll start at the top. Tony, NT5TM, did you manage to slog through more of the movie? And what are your thoughts? And by the way, you can say anything you
It's kind of surprising. Usually during these nets, people talk me out of watching the movie. But, I'm still interested. I really do want to finish this. I'm not sure if I'm going to like it or not, but the sense of interest I had has not waned, so I'm going to finish this tomorrow. No, tonight I've had to be helping with animals and dinner, and I have not had time to watch more of the movie, but I'm still intrigued. the only third round comment I would add would be, I thought the musical cues in the first third of the movie were pretty good. They reinforced my sense of ominous doom. You know, I don't know how it's going to end. Yeah, no, you told me how it's going to end. But I don't know how I'm going to feel about the ending. And I don't know how the music is going to reinforce that or negate it or just make a mistake. But so far, in what I've seen, I thought the music was really supportive. And I also really enjoyed the cinematography. I loved the framing of, that big room full of doctors and residents and nurses. So, from what I saw, it was still very promising, and it was still very supportive of the feelings that I was intrigued by, and I've heard everyone else's reactions, but I'm still wanting to go get my own. Usually people talk me out of watching the Afterglow movie, so I think it's kind of promising.
Okay, Tony, well, that's interesting. You're still hanging in there and you're liking the film. Very good. Well, don't get a brain implant because then, you know, it may change your mind. I don't know, or at least stimulate it. Jay, KG5BZW, your thoughts on anything you want or technical nature, you name it. This is your final chance to lay it on the line from KE5ICX.
This is KG5BZW. I'm trying to remember musical cues. Either they were there's some places where I was kind of would have hoped that there'd been some music. I'm almost wondering, are there two edits of this film? I watched the one on YouTube. Yeah, there are some parts toward the end. I know it's tension building. I honestly thought they could have done it a little bit different, but anyway, I don't know. It's I already mentioned the look, which I agree. I agree with its intent, but I don't know if it served its purpose. Really I personally could have appreciated some color just for contrast with the you know, the dankness, the black and white. Rich, I mean, you did get that toward the end with you know, the at the very end where, you know, he's out in the world and, you know, you get the cemetery and you got the flowers. Yeah, okay, so they have flower or whatever. I just appreciate it a little bit more, just a little bit more. I don't know. Maybe that would have taken me out of that mood though. Yeah. Yeah, I do agree with the audio comments before. I actually tend to watch movies with captions anyway, so it wasn't that big of a difference for me. Obviously, it's going to be a difference to somebody who is blind and can't have captions. Of course, unless you have like audio captions that, you know, the enhanced captions or whatever. But then you got somebody. What am I talking about? I don't know. Then you're talking about effectively narrating the movie out loud. Anyway, it could have been better, maybe, possibly. I did have to read the captions, I guess is what I'm saying. Anything else? I don't know. I mean, the tech, but I do. You know, I was only born in '78, so I shouldn't be. I remember, I don't know, robots back then. Yeah, having a robot do certain things like that was pretty, you know, pretty cool. obviously nowadays you got all kinds of, they got college competitions. They've had competitions for robotics to have your little drone car or whatever go through a track and do stuff and blah blah blah. I don't know if they still have them because after all, I mean we've already got Boston Robotics and all that. They can do a whole bunch of stuff. But I'm sure Boston Robotics is sponsoring some courses, some stuff somewhere just because, or people are trying to educate for that just because they need their next employees and whatnot. I don't know what else to say. I think I've had my share. I'll have the next person, KG5BTW.
All right, thank you, Jay. Thanks for your comments this evening. Next up is Brenda, WB5OZL. Brenda, your final thoughts. Go ahead from KE5ICX.
Thank you. This is WB5OZL. Well, if there was any music in it, I didn't notice. It was it washed out. I was just not there for me. Special effects, no, that wasn't there either, much to speak of. One thing I like to do with older movies is look at the context of the times that we were living in. We've talked about how there was a period where we had to warn everybody about the horrors of nuclear war, and and how humans can't be trusted. We're going to destroy ourselves. And I look at some of the movies from this era, late 60s, early 70s. There was a lot of depressing endings, like The Fox. They shoot horses, don't they? Bonnie and Clyde. I'm just doing this off the top of my head. There was a lot of this where the ending was just, and then they died, and maybe it was, a hangover from the horrible 60s or something, but there was just a lot of pessimism, and I think this may have been part of that attitude that people had then, because this was a depressing movie. And then there was Charlie. I watched that the other day, based on Flowers for Algernon, about a guy who is retarded, and then they do an operation. He becomes a genius, but it doesn't stick, and he returns to his former state. Very depressing. And not a lot of hope or optimism for the future, just depressing. And that's the way I found this. He was in a bad state to start with, and then they made him worse, and then they killed him. So, not much fun there. All right, back to net, WB5OZL.
Bill, your final thoughts. Go right ahead.
Okay, well, there was music, actually. They had the piano music. In the book, they talk about the doctor liked to have I think, Bach or something playing. It was Beethoven, but the line was that had something with if the surgery didn't go well, or if it something along the lines, at least the order could be appreciated or something. It was kind of weird. They did make reference to some music in the book, and the movie did some piano stuff. The one thing I think after he escaped, they had this like crazy sort of happy it just reminded me of a circus type scene, and that was for a couple minutes, which seemed kind of weird to me. It's interesting too because this whole thing. I use hearing aids because I lost some hearing as well when from allergies and ear infections when I lived in Austin and moved to Austin from Indiana, and it was just a totally different world. And long story short, by the time we figured out how to correct that, I'd had some hearing damage and got a lot back, but still need hearing aids at times. And so you talk about eyeglasses helping people see and hearing aids, and there's cochlear implants. I know Elon and some others are working on helping to restore sight, and that's a big thing that people talk about. Pilots controlling planes with brainwaves and stuff. So there's a lot of this stuff out there. So the movie didn't deal with that as much of that as I would have liked, but the book did. The interesting thing about Michael Crichton I found as well is, attending Harvard and medical school, so he has a background on this stuff, and he can geek out on this in his books, which is, if you're into that, it's pretty cool. So I like that. He was also a workaholic. He had 5 marriages. He would often get so engrossed, especially at the end of completing book projects, that he would go to bed like at 10 at night and get up at 2 in the morning. So he'd get 4 hours of sleep. I don't know if that contributed on his marriages. I just bring it up because he's, I think, definitely a workaholic. And I don't know what he would write today. It's kind of sad because he had lymphoma, cancer. I think it was 62 when he passed away. 2 kids, and his 5th wife had their, I think, son, and he had died while she was pregnant. I think Brenda brings up an interesting point. I've forgotten on a lot of these 70s movies, they wanted to warn us about the dooms, things that would happen to us if computers took control, or population control. I think of like Logan's Run, some of the stuff back in that time. Yeah, it was kind of not the happy endings that we expect from movies, but the author, producers, and everybody was, nuclear war was a big thing. Then we got into like computers are going to destroy us, and so yeah, that was kind of a big theme of that time. Anyway, that's all I got. W5BLT. Appreciate all you guys. Thanks, Tom, also for running the net.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Bill. I appreciate your comments as well, and thanks for coming back week after week and contributing. That makes all the difference in the world, and as I've secretly told everyone, this is my favorite net. Next up is David, W5EBB. David, what are your final parting comments? What do you have for us from KE5ICX?
Well, thanks, Tom. Now, curiously, I didn't notice the music either, not during the movie, so at least it was unobtrusive. Sometimes that's a good thing. But yes, I did notice the piano music in the beginning, and it is credited as Goldberg Variations. Goldberg was a guy who did variations on the themes of Bach, and I think that's what we're hearing here. And the themes are similar, but not quite the same. And maybe a stretch, that's metaphorical of what the brain changes were also, due to surgery, implants, or drugs. Now, there were some interesting set locations here. The neocortex pattern recognition coprocessor in my brain made several matches to my embedded Blade Runner training data set. The surgery after party was held at the Ennis house. The signature tiles can be seen inside the living room, just as seen inside Deckard's high-rise condo. Also featured was the 2nd Street Bridge with its reflective half-cylinder interior, is also seen in this movie. So, yes, I give 1 star extra credit for the set location choices and cinematography. Interesting movie, W5EBB.
Thank you, David. Oh, by the way, thank you for bringing in the Blade Runner vibe on that. You're absolutely right. The bridge or tunnel part was in both Blade Runner and also at least the patterns that were used in Innes' house that were reproduced actually in reverse, but the same pattern for Decker's apartment, high-rise apartment. Okay, that leaves me. I didn't recognize the music either. I mean, I didn't pay attention to it, which is really unusual for me because I always love listening to musical scores, and in fact, I go out and buy them after I've seen the movie. I didn't get it on this one, and I have to go back and actually listen again to hear it. That's rather unusual for me, and I'm not quite sure why that happened, but it did, at any rate. Let's see. I've already mentioned what I thought about the sound and all of that. Framing was good. I thought that was good. The film look was okay, but again, because it was filmed on location, some of the lighting was just driving me nuts, and the audio drove me nuts. But I already described that on the first round. What else do I have? I guess not a lot. This film probably has not aged as well as it could have, and that may be why I'm not as big of a fan of it. Knowing all the technology that's out there today, and I've actually having had to be subjected to a lot of this modern technology, from robotic surgery to robotic pinpoint radiation and all of that. I've been through all of that stuff, and it's amazing in science. It's not perfect. There are things that cause side effects and cause things to go wrong in the future, and anybody that has to go through all of that realizes that that's always going to be hanging over their head moving forward. And so there's that. I kind of wish they had done a little bit more in that area, because the person changes. I mean, you become different slightly, or a lot, depending on what it is. And I've written a considerable amount of logging my experiences, and that, the medical profession really does present itself in sort of a cold and indifferent way, especially when all these technologies are applied over a period of time to people, and they don't really offer much in the way of support. They're aware that they do not, but they're very bad at it, and they're very unapologetic when they make mistakes. I find that rather annoying. I think newer films today, maybe a remake of this film with the new technologies, might be better, with a higher impact. I think that knowing what we know now might make for a much better film and a better experience for people to understand what the heck is going on. I don't know. Maybe that's why I didn't. I'm trying to figure out why I was not a big fan of this film. Now, we've seen some pretty terrible films through the years, but this was not a terrible film. I just didn't feel it was a particularly good film or memorable film. And I think it had potential that never got tapped. I think those are the things that bother me about it. And it's an opinion. It's a feeling. It has... the stuff that they've done with his materials. I know he was a great writer and did some really great things and was well received as a popular author as well, and entertaining. So this film kind of left me a little flat. Not bad, just not as good as I thought and what I was expecting, I guess. At any rate, those are my thoughts out loud. Okay, with that, we're actually about 5 minutes early. Let me pull up, here it is. Unless I find something different, I'm going to go through and see if there's any contemporary films that may be out there that's still hanging around for next week. But tentatively planned for next week is a film from 1959, a Japanese film called That's all it says. It's by Ishiro Honda. I wonder if he makes the car or the motorcycles. He might. Who knows? With that, I'm going to say goodnight to everyone. Thank you all for checking in and making your comments. It's always fun. And as I said, this is my favorite net, so I really enjoy hearing people's comments and get a new perspective on a film that we happen to see, even when they're terrible. So we'll see you next week. This is KE5ICX. I'll post all this info, and you should get it in your inbox tomorrow, or go to Facebook and Afterglow Movie, 2 words, Afterglow and Movie, and you can find it there. So if anybody's out there listening wants to participate, too shy to talk, that's where you can find all the information for next week. See y'all. This is KE5ICX, clear.
I'm sorry, KE5ICX, KG5BZW. What was it called again? It cut off right at when you said it.
Okay, Jay, it is Battle in Outer Space. That's Battle in Outer Space from 1959. It's a Japanese-American International picture.
All right, thank you very much, KG5BZW, clear.